thing that I would tell you all. If you ever wonder, what can I do? If you ever had the thought, what can you do to help the pastor or help me? Specifically, if you're thinking about me, Sunday evenings and Monday mornings is usually the roughest 24 hours of my week. Sunday evenings, I have a hard time sleeping. I deal with such a great amount of anxiety and difficulty all the way through most of the day on Monday. If you would remember me as I go through these evenings, I can't explain it. I don't know why. But when it comes time to lay my head down on Sunday nights, it's very difficult for me. And so I'd ask you to pray for me. Uh, maybe it's maybe it's just knowing that I've got burdens I've got to deal with, and I'm keeping those for the next few days. I don't know what it is, but pray for me as we continue to work and minister here. We go back and we did a two-part, and I guess by way of review, we'll just briefly talk about where we're at. We talked about intoxicants here in our study on We Engage, or how to be a good church member. It's been called a couple of different things. But we talked about how we engage to abstain from the sale and use of intoxicating drink as a beverage. And I said we need to add to that, and I believe we do. And I believe at the end of this, we'll have probably some time of prayer where we'll go a few weeks praying about our church covenant, praying about the study. And I'll ask you, and I guess I could ask you now because it's already been mentioned, if there's something that we need to add or change, we'll have a service where we talk about adding or changing it. And you men, anything I would desire, I'd be most desirous of your input. And whatever your input is, you need to find it in the Bible. You need to have a scripture for it. And I was thinking this morning as I was looking at some things, we're coming up here shortly, men, where we need to start getting together. Because we need to go over the website, the what we believe about the website. Sure, I can build it. I can put it in there. But we need to put it in there. We need to know what it says. We need to have it written out. Our beliefs, something that we can have and we can give to a visitor that walks in and says, what do you believe? And where do you find it? We need to do that together. So that'll be something that's coming up in the near future where we might meet once a month somewhere with a topic in mind of what we're going to study, and then review it the next month and start going through on what we believe so that we can lead our homes and our families correctly. But that was just the rabbit trail for the second. That's been a burden on my heart. We need to understand that we are abstaining from intoxicating drink. And I use the word for simplicity, any substance that has control over you. Tobacco, marijuana, narcotics, a vape pen, any of these things that has the control of addiction over you, you should sustain. Why? Because you can either be filled with that or filled with the Spirit. And we don't need to be the kind of people that are filled with addiction. We need to be filled with the Spirit. We saw in Genesis 9:21 that wine is the tool of sin. Wine was used as Noah partook of it. After he saved by his obedience to the Lord, after he was used as a tool to save mankind, Noah had consumed too much wine and found himself uncovered for his son to see and caused great sin to his son. In Genesis 19, we saw the fornication of Lot. The absolute shame that wine was used as a tool for sin again for Lot and his two daughters. And then we've seen in 2 Samuel chapter 13 the murder of Ammon. Wine was a killer. Alcohol, substance, strong drink. There's many ways people can look at it. But strong drink, something that consumed enough would be a strong drink to take control over you. It kills. In Isaiah, we saw the judgment of God upon Israel. And we've seen that it continued on with with the Jews in Acts. You know, one of my favorite passages there in Acts chapter 2. By way of review, we see that as ye suppose is something that we do when we consume intoxicants. When we consume alcohol or anything that has control over us. It's a tool of sin. Yes, people like to say, well, there was alcohol used all throughout the Bible, or wine or strong drink. But it led many to sin too. We as a church are having a church covenant together that we are abstaining from it. That we're not going to touch it. It's going to be difficult at times. You like social settings, you're forced in business settings when that's all that's present. We have to deny ourselves from family functions. We have to deny ourselves from certain blessings through work, perhaps, because that's going to be present. We have to deny ourselves so much that we can't even be seen in the appearance of evil with it. And that's one of the hardest parts about it anymore for us. Is even being seen in and around it. I can think of times of great mercy in my life. When I was around it, didn't partake of it, but when I was around it, and when I could have very easily had my testimony ruined because of it. I'm thankful that I didn't. I'm thankful that I had a church covenant. And I know at points in my early adult life where had it have not been for the church covenant, nothing would have stopped me because I wasn't a strong enough Christian. But the grace of God kept me from it. So we see that it's the tool of sin. In Daniel chapter 5, we calls King Belteshazzar to defile those vessels he stole from the temple, the tabernacle. And he was slain while consumed with alcohol. He wasn't in his right mind. So I want to look at some verses as we go where it just talks about wine being the companion of evil and sorrow. You know, nobody ever takes that first drink expecting to lose their marriage, their driver's license, their freedom, their children. You know where most people consume their first alcohol? In their adolescence. In their teenage years. Purely social. purely from social insecurity. They consume their first cigarettes, alcohol, drugs as a teenager. Folks, I have such a burden for us not to be absent parents, and I think it's so wonderful that we all are so close to our kids. They're being educated by us. And I'm not saying that the school system does a poor job. I'm asking you, do you want the school system to raise your kids in the nurture of the admonition of the Lord? Because they can't. I have some very, very close friends that are teachers. There's like 6 teachers at Faith in Wasion, I think, or was. And there's many kids in this world that need it, but how do you want your kids? What do you want your kids to learn? You know, I want you to think about intoxicants with me. And I know I'm a little slower. This is heavy on my mind, and I've got some things heavy on my mind. But I want you to think about intoxicants with me. Pretty soon, we're going to get to pornography. Do you know the age that the average age of the first sighting of pornography? It's 9 years old. 9. Can I give you advice without rebuke? Don't put something in front of your kids that gives them free access to the world. Don't let them have your phone. Don't let them have a tablet. Don't let them have a TV in their room. Because the world is trying to shove it in, and it doesn't matter how hard you try to keep out any intoxicants or things that would be addictive. The world is trying to shove them in your home. And it doesn't matter how careful you think you're being, if it's right there and it's at their disposal, it's going to make it to them. I read that the other day when I was thinking about the church covenants ahead. And I was thinking about addictions, and I was thinking about alcohol and drugs and pornography and these things that are so destructive, and they're all right there at the grasp of our children. And if you start looking around, we got a lot of 9-year-olds, past 9-year-olds, or almost 9-year-olds, if we're talking about averages. That scares me. Be careful who your kids play with. I know there's times where my kids, they just want to play with other kids. They're homeschooled, right? And there's been this nice neighbor boy who comes and visits his great-grandmother that comes into the house, or comes by the house and wants to play with the kids, but he's much older than them. And I'm careful because I don't know him. And I'm on pins and needles. If we love our kids, we're going to model what not to do. Last night, it was funny, we got home. I don't even remember what Leo asked it for. He's like, Dad, I'm not picking on you, buddy. He always thinks I'm picking on him. He goes, Dad, I want a TV right here. He would want to play some game right in his room. I said, no. You don't need a TV in your room. Folks, it doesn't start with what we would consider the worst of the worst. It starts by allowing the commercials of this world to stay on for your kids to see. We can't even turn on YouTube TV in our house because of how terrible the commercials are. You can't leave that for your kids to have free access to. Certainly not kids in the age of young adolescence. I mean, it's not good for us to be around. And we have the discernment. Pray for it. In Hosea chapter 4, I want to talk about wine being the companion of evil and sorrow. I want to talk about addictions being the companion of evil and sorrow. "80% of all incarcerations in this country are drug and alcohol related. The next largest part of that has to do with pornography. We can cover the two most important parts of things that we need to deny ourselves from, that we can teach our kids, that could be life-saving measures for them. Hosea chapter 4, verse 11. "Whoredom and wine and new wine take away the heart." Well, we just covered about 95% of what I just said. Whoredom and wine. That's 95% of the trouble in this country today. Wine is a companion with whoredom. Wine and whoredom are the companion with evil and sorrow. Brother Derek told us that he started teaching the kids about Satan and about how that Satan is not the red guy with horns and a pitchfork and a long tail. Kids, these things that look pleasing, look fun, that's what Satan is all about. These things that you see on TV. I mean, I don't ever think I come up here and I feel like I'm getting wacky, right? Like you see the men that go, "Well, I don't have TV, I don't have internet, I'm going to just live in a cardboard box, and because everything is bad. Everything's bad all the time." You know, we've seen those men come to conferences and preach that really hard and either highly change their beliefs or they leave. And I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying to you is the devil is in everything and in every place that we go. You kids, these things that look nice, that in your mind you know mom and dad would not let you do it. And I hope you all are listening to me. Kids, when your mom and dad, you know that you're doing something your mom and dad doesn't want you to do. When you're watching something, looking at something, talking about something, acting or doing something that you know your mom and dad shouldn't or wouldn't let you do. That excitement that you feel from doing exactly that which you're not supposed to do is you pleasing the devil. Is you pleasing the devil. The devil does not walk around with a pitchfork and the red guy that you can identify. The devil's there to trick you and ruin your life. And he can trick adults too. Your parents are not exempt from that. When you joined the church, and as we even have those of you at the youngest of ages that are members of the church, and we certainly have expectations for you, and then we have those that are lost, that we still have expectations that one day you'll be saved and added and joining and serving the church. Nobody is exempt. Nobody. Wine is a companion of evil and sorrow. Oftentimes your disobedience, your sin is going to feel good for just a little bit. There's pleasure in disobedience and sin for a little bit. And then one day it goes away. And here comes the sorrow. Go to Proverbs chapter 21. The majority of what we're going to look at is in Proverbs. Kids, Proverbs is a very good and understandable book for you all to read. I would venture out to say that the majority of you children could open the book of Proverbs and read it and understand it. If you were to just, and this is Pastor Austin, I'll give you something to do, kids. If you open your Bible and you look at how many times in Proverbs it says, my son, that's speaking to children. That's speaking to you. And you can read those my sons and get instruction, just like I can read those my sons and get instruction. And you should be able to understand it. Proverbs chapter 21, verse 17. He that loveth pleasure shall be a poor man. He that loveth wine and oil shall not be rich. You know, unfortunately, alcoholics, drug addicts, and every other type of addicts out there have a demographic. They fall into that demographic of controlled. They don't have much. Or if they do, they usually lose it. The bottle of wine, the pills, the drugs, the substance of some sort, it eventually will take over so much control over you, you'll lose everything. Nobody ever sets out to lose everything they have. That's why the devil is good at what he does. We see, he that loveth pleasure shall be a poor man. Oh, the messages that could come from that thought. How much do we want to love pleasure? How much is this world working for just pleasure? How is this world trying to make a living on pleasure? Oh, the messages that could come from that. Proverbs chapter 23. This is where the Bible is so literal. Where the Bible has such great description that it's wonderful for us. Proverbs chapter 23, verse 29. Who hath woe? Who hath sorrow? Who hath contentions? Who hath babbling? Who hath wounds without cause? Who hath redness of eyes? They that tarry long at the wine, and they that go to seek mixed wine. Talks about alcoholics that are sorrowful. I remember, unfortunately, going to public school and my friends beginning to drink. Lord saved Alyssa and put us together really at about the time that my friends began to drink heavily. And so the Lord took me out of that. And I'm so thankful that He saw fit to do that. But I remember the stories that they would come back. Well, so-and-so, when they get drunk, they just cry. Well, so-and-so, when they get drunk, they just fight. Well, so-and-so, when they get drunk, they just fall. Well, so-and-so, when they get drunk, their eyes are as red as I've ever seen anybody. I mean, this is actual. And then when you start to deal with the public in the healthcare side, like I did, you see all these things. People come in, just like you and I, or oftentimes worse, people of great stature in this world. And they come in because they've drank too much, and you have to take them and strap them on a bed because they're either going to hurt themselves, hurt other people, or commit a violent crime because they're not in their right mind. That's what it's going to lead you to. That's why you can't just pick it up and just have a little bit. We see this covenant should just separate us and help care for each other. In Proverbs chapter 20, verse 1, wine is a mocker. Strong drink is raging. And whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. Wine is a mocker. You want to consume alcohol, if you want to try to consume it and not think much of it, just remember the words, wine is a mocker. It's sin. That strong drink is raging. Boy, I wish people could, I think that you could go to a miserable alcoholic, read them these words, they'd believe it and understand it, and they'd still keep on drinking. But boy, they'd have woe. My grandfather used to say when he would preach about the day he was saved, he used to say, the day the Lord saved me, Budweiser lost a whole truck. And if you knew anything about his early life, you'd believe it. Matter of fact, I'll tell you this part for context. My grandfather was the youngest of three boys. My Uncle Brent, my Uncle Bo, and my grandfather. They were really good football players in Michigan. Back in the mid-50s. Really good football players. They were very popular in school. They were the ones that all the boys, everybody wanted. Well, my grandfather had his first child when he was a senior in high school. And those boys kind of fell apart too. Given to the world even 70 years ago. Given to the world everything 70 years ago. Successful by the world's standards, right? Sin enticed them. Mercy and grace saved one of them. It's just interesting to me. We're not wise when we're despised by these intoxicants. And I don't believe that there's any way that we can suppose that it's okay for us to do it. I believe we have to be separate. We have to be different. When I said the other day, yeah, there could be some medicinal purposes, but how are you going to come across it without looking like you're using it? Just like everybody else. If you're to maintain your testimony, how do you get it? I don't know that you can. Proverbs chapter 31. The words of King Lemuel from his mother. We often think of Proverbs 31 and we go, well, that's the chapter on the woman. Well, that's the chapter of a mother who sat a boy down and said, this is what you look for, and this is what you do. So yes, women, it's the words of King Lemuel, but it's the words of King Lemuel by being taught by his mother. It's what his mother taught him. So you can have a very important impact on your boys as their mother. Verse 4 of chapter 31. It is not for kings, O Lemuel, it is not for kings to drink wine, nor for princes strong drink, lest they drink and forget the law and pervert the judgment of any of the afflicted. Give strong drink unto him that is ready to perish, and wine unto those that be of heavy heart. Let him drink and forget his poverty and remember his misery no more. Only to remember that they have to remember their misery when they wake up. People are trying to use wine as a tool to prevent their problems. Trying to use alcohol, drug addiction, substance abuse, and anything they can get their hands on to run from their problems or to feel better for a minute. I was talking to a coworker, dealing with somebody that's an alcoholic and is struggling to get through it. And he said, I've never found anything at the bottom of that bottle when it gets empty. Nothing but my problems are still there. I've created more, and I'm miserable. I hope we warn these kids of what addiction can do in their life. I hope we do. Addiction got me disciplined from church at 17 years old, 18 years old. God was merciful to me. Others have not been so fortunate. Ephesians chapter 5. Verse 18. I would put this as the title verse for today. And be not drunk with wine wherein is excess, but be filled with the Spirit. You can only be filled with one or the other. That's it. That's all you got. Be filled with the Spirit. Proverbs chapter 23. It's going to hit a little home to us, probably. Something we don't even talk about very often. Proverbs chapter 23, verse 21. For the drunkard and the glutton shall come to poverty, and drowsiness shall clothe a man with rags. We don't talk about gluttony very much. I don't know the last time I've even heard a message on gluttony. But understand that drunkenness, laziness, and gluttony are all compared to the same. So we got to think about our gluttony. I love to eat. Right here, I'm putting my hand up. And I keep having to buy different suits. So, I'm volunteering as tribute. I'm not pointing the finger. Quit laughing, Derek. Kidding. But drunkenness, drowsiness. It's interesting how they use drowsiness here, being that it's italicized. I'm sorry, man is italicized. It's just below it in mine. But drunken, gluttony shall come to poverty. Drowsiness shall clothe a man with rags. It's all compared to be the same thing. And it's going to bring shame, sorrow, evil, misery. To God first, it'll bring shame. And to you, it brings it all. You can't just have a little bit. Over in 1 Timothy, I believe this is an area where we can be great supposers. In verse 1, the context, this is a true saying, if a man desire the office of a bishop, he desireth a good work. A bishop then must be blameless. I said that as one of my points on Friday afternoon. I said, as a preacher, I have to think, and I did not think. I didn't want to think, because it would change me in every way. Am I being blameless? As I charged and challenged those preachers as the message that the Lord gave me, I said, you must be blameless. You all must be blameless. You don't know if you are the next preacher or pastor or preacher's wife or pastor's wife, or if you're raising the next preacher or pastor's wife. You don't know. So you must be blameless. Not given to wine, nor a striker, not greedy of filthy lucre, but patient, not a brawler, not covetous. Likewise, in verse 8, must the deacons be grave, not double-tongued, not given to much wine, not greedy of filthy lucre. There is some really strong and difficult comparisons there. It's a call above. Two passages in closing. Habakkuk chapter 2. Maybe I keep skipping by it. Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 15. Woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, and puttest thy bottle to him, and makest him drunken also, that thou mayest look on their nakedness. I'm not going to read any more, but let me just say this. If you've ever been given alcohol as a gift, if you work in the professional world, if you have vendors, they might give you alcohol as a gift. Don't give it to anybody. Take it home and dump it out. Spare somebody the trouble. I'll never forget giving alcohol to a coworker of mine. He's like, you going to drink that? And he knew I didn't drink. And I gave him my basket that came from the bank because there's $500 of high-quality alcohol in it. And I remember for such a long time, I thought, how did I not have enough zeal? Back there into our conference room where everybody's at and go, it's not good for me, it's not good for you. This is that same coworker that probably got me the closest to drink out of anybody in my life. We have to abstain from it, from the use to somebody else, from the sale. Can't go wait tables and serve alcohol to somebody because that violates the covenant. I don't know that you can go work at Walmart and stock the shelves of alcohol or check it out because it violates the covenant. It is completely different. We have to be different. We get no benefit from the sale or use of intoxicating drinks, nor can we provide any benefit from the sale or use of intoxicating drinks, narcotics, beverages, anything of that nature. We must be different. And then back in Proverbs 23. Proverbs 23, verse 20. Pick up in verse 19. Hear thou, my son, and be wise, and guide thine heart in the way. All right, kids, I told you, look for those my sons of Proverbs. Parents, if you want to do something with your kids, you give them an expectation of going through Proverbs if they can read. You go chapter by chapter and make them find the verses that are talking about them. Make them go find the my sons, hear these words, or the my sons, hear thou, and make them bring them to you. But you know what? And I'm in this camp, everybody. We have to be ready to talk about it, which means that we have to read it too. We have to be reading it too. If we're going to teach them wisdom, let's explain it. Let's help them find it. Let's equip them. We don't want them to fall into alcohol and substance abuse and the abuse of pornography and the sin of fornication and the sin of adultery. Then let's equip them. Be not among wine bibbers, among riotous eaters of flesh, for the drunkard and the glutton shall come to poverty, and drowsiness shall clothe a man with rags. Verse 23 is what we could close in. Buy the truth and sell it not. Also wisdom and instruction and understanding. The father of the righteous shall greatly rejoice, and he that beggeth a wise child shall have joy of him. Thy father and thy mother shall be glad, and she that beareth thee shall rejoice. My son, give me thine heart, and let thine eyes observe my ways. They're watching. If you're idle, they'll see you're idle. If you're serving, they'll see you serving. If you're lazy in your word, they'll see that you're lazy in the word. If you're great in the word, they'll see you're great in the word. I don't have enough time, unless y'all want to do a Friday night service. I don't have enough time to give you every burden I have. But as I see these kids growing up, My soft spots for the kids. I just wanted to be the youth group director for the rest of my ministry. My soft spots for these kids. And I see little ones. I see little ones with sin naturally already. I see 8 and 9 and 10-year-olds being 8 and 9 and 10-year-olds. Brother, you're right. It's uphill. Y'all, we're going to paddle uphill because kids, everything you're going to want to do in your natural flesh, you cannot do. And if you have godly parents, you're blessed. And you're so special to me, but you're not going to be special to the world. The world's going to tear you up. The world's going to tear you apart. Satan wants to destroy you. Alcohol and substance abuse and all these things, we think, well, that's not really something we have to worry about right now. But if the average age for exposure is 9, and the average age for exposure to alcohol and drugs is in the earlier years of a teenager, we're not far. Unless you're not careful, and unless you don't teach them now. You think, what does the world teach really well? What does the school system teach really well that we as parents don't do? I bet this is going to throw you for a loop. Stranger danger. The world teaches it really well. The schools teach it really well about stranger danger in young kids. That's what they called it when I was a kid. I don't know if they got a new word for it now. Probably. We've got to remake things or make them better or ramp them up. I say that because I had somebody walking in my yard and my kids are like, hey, how are you? I'm like, oh, I'm doing such a terrible job at this. Why did I not tell them they can't go talk to everybody that shows up because not everybody's nice? I pray that you be very realistic with yourselves. I know it's not popular. And I know your kids won't like it. And I know it's going to make your life more difficult. But I urge you, I exhort you, I do what I'm supposed to do as a minister based off of my conviction. I urge you, if you got a TV in your kids' room, get it out. If it has access to anything other than a video game. And if they do have access to a video game, they have access online, you might want to put it in a popular spot that may hinder you. But at least you can see what they're doing with it. I say that trying to model it for my own household. I love these kids. And when you look at them today, you're not going to think about the dangers that might happen in 3 or 4 or 5 years because we're not paying attention to them. But wouldn't you rather do the steps today versus find out in 5 years? They're going to, one day these kids are going to go, I don't like Brother Austin. He takes all my fun away. And kids, I understand. But I hope one day when you're older, and I pray that the Lord still has Brother Austin standing in this pulpit. And I pray that the Lord still has your family and these families, plus more, in this church. I pray that one day you know that everything I said is because I love you and because I want you to be cared for and safe. And, you know, kids, I face a lot as a pastor. I face a lot oftentimes where I tell people at work, people at church, things that really bother me. But you know what, kids? Oh, Brother Austin has had a lot of living he's done. It's by God's grace that I stand before you today. And I mean it. It's by God's grace that I have the ability to stand before you today. But, oh, Brother Austin's done a lot of living. I've done a lot of sinning. I've done a lot of things. And I don't want you to. And people of this world have a really big problem when you tell them no. People of this world have a really big problem when you say, you're going the wrong way. You take that path. Listen, I know it, guys. I know it's difficult. You guys think, sometimes I would imagine you probably think, I think there's one way to do things and that I'm always right and that what I say matters. But listen, the alternative to me not chastening, to me not preaching, to me not telling you the conviction on my heart is me leave you to yourself. That's not my calling. Friday night, Wednesday was so difficult at Wasion to preach. I think that I just want to preach messages to people because they're wrong and I have people on my heart and I have so many people that I'm going to fix. I'm not here to fix anybody. I can't fix you. But all I can do is preach to you from looking in the mirror. I only have 31 years of looking in the mirror I can do. And I don't just always look in the mirror and say, oh, things have been really bad. But I remember the warnings. I remember the positions. And I can't sit by and not preach that to you. And time again, if I see the warnings over and over and over again of paths to substance abuse, to sin, to fornication, to lust, to all these things, to disrespect. Disrespect goes so unchecked in the Lord's churches, especially to children who become disrespectful adults in the Lord's church. And you see the same warnings and paths over and over again, and you preach it, and you preach it, and you preach it, and you see people so unaffected by it. It's discouraging. Because the people that aren't affected by preaching are usually the ones that aren't here anymore. And I love the people of this church too much to not preach to you. I've had to do a lot of looking in the mirror. All those years as a preacher. All the disrespect I had for my pastor. All the discontentment I had. You know, I had one job. There in 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 2, it talks about, I besought thee to abide still in Ephesus while I went on to Macedonia. And I'm paraphrasing that. I either got close or I butchered it. I'm not sure. But abiding still was what I had a responsibility to do. And I created a wake of not abiding still. And I'm sure there's people that didn't agree with my message, but it came from my heart. The Lord put that burden on my heart and said, preach it. I had 8 messages with me. I had 2 that had never been preached before. I'll suffer consequences for that message, I assure you. And I'll suffer consequences for messages that I preach here. But I'm still going to preach them. You go home and you think about your kids. Even from the youngest of Grayson and Hayden and Ladd. Samuel's mother gave Samuel from the time he could be weaned. Wish I could have a Friday night service on the family every week. I've learned I can do 4 to 5 messages a week. Wish I could just do a family message every week. There's just not enough messages. I just don't have enough time. I don't have enough pulpit time. Last night when we got home, I told the kids, as we got to pull in, they're kids. They're going to make a mess. They made a total mess of the Wagoneer in the back. The big 2 did. I wasn't upset that they made a mess. I said, when we get home, you are to clean the mess. I want that car cleaned up. My wife had worked so hard before we left to clean the entire house on her birthday, to have everything ready to go so we could come home in peace. One thing about me, in case you don't know, I cannot stand the car being filthy. I also can't stand the car being filthy, and I can't stand the garage being filthy. The garage always has to wait. I'd have to get to that later, and then it gets dirty so quick. I walked out at 9 o'clock after they had baths and they were getting ready to go to bed. The car wasn't all the way cleaned. They did about 80% of it. They did really good, but the other 20% was bad. Now, they traveled well. They were great over the last 4 days. They were lockstep with my wife and I every place we went. I could have just been gracious to them and said, you know what? They did 80% of it. It's been a long week, 1,500 miles, 4 nights, 4 different beds, 4 different towns, a lot of seat time. They're okay. But I grabbed my big 2. I said, come here. The consequence was spankings if you don't do it right. I said, come here. The car is not cleaned. I'm tired. I want to go to bed. I want them to go to bed. I love them. But it was time for them to go to bed. You know what I'm talking about. I brought them out and I said, God's merciful to me every day. I don't deserve what I have. And after some explaining, I said, go clean the car. Because I needed to set that expectation, the follow through, something that I'm not good at times. I think it's something that we probably all struggle with, parents. The reason I bring that up is not to embarrass my kids, because my kids got out there in the dark and they cleaned every inch of that up. Because I don't wish to embarrass my kids. My kids are going to have to face enough in the course of ministry. If you have something convicting you that you need to go home and do, Follow through. Follow through. Preserve their innocence. Preserve their purity. Let them be mad, but hope one day they understand. And as you're raising young kids, start disciplining them as early as you can. Preserve them, but follow through. Nothing we do or say is going to come without some sort of a cause or great difficulty. Pray for me as we try to be an encouragement to you. Pray for me as I try to raise my family based on godly expectations. And I'll pray for you as you do the same. Strive to live every day the same, trying to please and honor the Lord. Brother Derek, why don't you come? We'll sing one verse of song.